The start of passage 88 to 102 of Juz 9 is a continuation of the discourse between Shu'aib alayhi salam and his disbelieving community. The discourse ends in verse 93 with him saying, Ya qawmi, I have indeed delivered my Rabb's message to you. Rounding off the discussion about the fate of past communities, 94 to 102 explains the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The essence in these verses, difficulty and ease are only trials from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second passage, 103 to 137, is a detailed account of the history of Musa alayhi salam with Fir'aun and his people, starting with Musa alayhi salam's call to oneness, continuing with the miracles, the staff turning into a snake, the bright hand, and then the contest between Musa alayhi salam and the magicians of Fir'aun. His magicians responded to the truth, Rabbi Musa wa Harun. However, Fir'aun and his people still turned away. Their stubborn rejection led to the episodes of hardship in the form of poor harvest, floods, pests of locusts, ants, frog, and blood. While in hardship, they promised obedience, only to break the promise during ease. 137 is a description of their ultimate destruction once they had arrived to their appointed term. We drowned them in the sea. فَأَغْرَقْنَاهُمْ فِي الْيَمِّ. 138 to 171 highlights the crimes of Bani Israel after they were rescued from Fir'aun. Starts with the demand for an idol. In 138, worshipping the calf in the absence of Musa alayhi salam. 148. 155, conditioned to see God in order to believe in Musa alayhi salam and Tawrat. This is then followed by a mention of the favors from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in 160. The 12 springs, the clouds for shade, manna and salwa for food. 163 onwards is an example of a punishment that came upon them. The story of Sabbath in 163 and a warning by the raising of the mountain over them in 171. This then takes us to the reminder of a covenant that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took from the entire humanity. Am I not your Rabb? Alastu bi Rabbikum? Taking us to 205, where we find the attitude of a believer remaining steadfast on that covenant, constantly making dua with humility and fear. Tadarru'an wa khifatan, closing this surah with an ayah of sajda in 206. The last passage, 1 to 40, starts Surah Anfal with a brief reference to the war spoils, followed by describing the believers in terms of their fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their tawakkul in Him, salah, and their spending in His path. Giving an example of such believers is the account of the Battle of Badr. In it, we find specific addresses to the believers, calling out to them, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, in verses 15, 24, 27, 29, instructing them to remain firm, obedient and loyal to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger in exchange for the forgiveness. Finally, concluding the juz, instructing Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam to call upon the disbelievers despite their wrong, saying, if they return to Him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive them. Ayah 38. And if they still turn away, Ya Rasul, know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your Mawla, the protective friend. نعم المولى ونعم النصير.
من أجبت دعاء نوح فانتصر وحملته في فلكك المشحون يا من أحال النار حول خليله روحا وريحانا بقولك كن